tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am business-wise about a mile wide and about a quarter inch deep. Done a lot of things in the turnaround industry for the last 35 years. I've got a wonderful wife, two kids from a previous marriage, two stepdaughters that are practicing periodontists here in Oklahoma City, three granddaughters. Life is good. I get to golf quite a bit. So
Let's kind of talk a little bit about, tell us some of your professional accomplishments that you're proud of.
I have raised nearly $800 million for companies for either working capital or acquisitions. I bought about almost 40 companies, bought and or sold approximately 40 companies.
Any awards or accolades you want to mention?
I still have my job.
Hey, yeah.
I still do what I love to do. So
for those that are going to be or interested in attending your presentation in February, tell us a little bit about what those people can expect to learn.
Well, I will talk a little bit about the turnaround industry, what makes a troubled company and how to fix it. I will talk about mergers and acquisitions. Having done approximately 40 of those, I think I'm qualified in that arena, ranging anywhere from probably a low of 1 million in revenue to a high of about $150 million in revenue. I will tell them what some of the I guess tricks of the trade are that I use anyway in the turnaround industry. I'll go over very briefly the history of the turnaround industry, and I will share with them how I got into the turnaround industry in a happenstance or serendipitous manner. And I'll discuss very briefly one of my most interesting, I guess, episodes, cases, whatever, where I got to work with Ben Pickens when he was a corporate raider back approximately 30 years ago.
I'd like to dive into your origin story. How did you get started in this industry?
Well, I bought a company back in June of 1982 called Perfection Equipment Company. And at the time, I think our revenues were roughly $2 million a month. Well, there was a little shopping center bank here in Oklahoma City called Penn Square Bank that crashed on July the 5th, 1982. And I don't think either myself or my partner recognized the fact that a little shopping center bank could have the impact that it did, but it caused probably the greatest crash in the oil industry, certainly in my lifetime. Anyway, our revenue went from $2 to $2.5 million a month to approximately $300,000 a month in revenue. And based on that, we had, at the time we purchased the company, we had about 130 employees. A year later, we had 30 employees. We were making decisions on how to cut based on whether someone had been there 15 years or 20 years. It was and continues to be a great company. But based on that, we actually survived the industry, turned down, and Perfection today is a very, very lively, very growing company here in Oklahoma City still. So I got into it and I learned how to save a company back before the Turin Management Association was formed. But I was probably one of the first 100 people to join that association when I found out that it was in existence.
Tell me a little bit more about this foundation you mentioned. I'm curious to learn more about them.
The Turin Management Association, it's an industry now populated by primarily lawyers and accountants. There are a few, and I mean, I am an attorney, but there are a few people that have actually run companies that are not CPAs or attorneys, such as myself. But I think the membership now is probably about 12 to 13,000 people internationally. It's a formalized industry now that has giant annual conventions and a lot of people that have managed turnarounds in probably every different industry you can imagine.
What you kind of look for when you're getting ready to buy a company?
There are several things I look for. For one, probably the most important thing that I look for is, does the company have passionate people remaining? 9 times out of 10, about 85% of the time, current management is the issue. Current management is the problem. And normally I replace current management. But if the line managers and the other key employees don't have a passion for that company, I'm typically not interested in either buying it or turning it around for a bank or a financial institution. Other things, as far as that goes, I look for the viability of the company. How bad is their cash? Because in a turnaround situation, cash is king. They have to have revenue to support getting their feet back on the ground. One of the things that I typically find is that when we go into a company, current management, if they're in trouble, has stuck their head in the ground. They don't respond to bankers. They don't respond to vendors. They just, I think, assume that this problem will go away. And so the first thing that I do when I go in is communicate with all the stakeholders, including the employees, the bankers, the vendors, everybody involved that may have some kind of stake in the future of that company, and let them know once we have a plan worked out what that plan is going to be. And in most cases, I get 95% acquiescence to the plan by the vendors, the lenders, and the employees. As far as viability goes, I will do a lot of research into the industry. One of the probably best buys that I could have made and didn't buy was I had an opportunity to buy a CRT manufacturing facility. I don't recall where it was now, but it was about a 500,000 square foot facility about the time that flat screens were coming into popularity. And I'm rather glad that I didn't choose to buy that company. That was an industry that had no future. One of the things that I will do when I look at the people in a company is I'll run either a DISC assessment or a Myers-Briggs personality assessment and determine what the personality types are and whether or not they're going to be useful. Do we have too many high Ds in one area, as an example, or what the Myers-Briggs? Do we have the right people on the bus in the right seats? One of the things that the most common statement that I've heard over and over and over again. I think I've worked in 22 different industries. Is, well, you can't possibly know my company because our industry is different. Our company's different. And I mean, I've heard that in every single company that I've ever worked with. And I think when I explain to people that collections are collections, revenue needs to be brought in a timely fashion, bills need to be paid in a timely fashion, that those are all standards that need to be met by every company, every industry. And I think normally I've not had a problem getting that point across.
Diving into the next phase, kind of you bought the company. What are some typical like strategies or word of advice for those that are trying to turn things around and make it more profitable?
The first thing is they've got to get a handle on cash flow, and they can do that with their accountant. If they're financially adept, they can do it themselves. But they have to get a handle on forecasting. It doesn't matter if you have a great plan if you don't have any cash to implement that plan. It does no good. So we analyze through what's called a 13-week rolling forecast. We cash flow out on a weekly basis. Every Monday we review it, update it, and we plan as far as cash flow, revenues in. Every single bill that is due is accounted for. We meet with the employees, tell them what's going on. We meet with the lenders in the case. We communicate with them, let them know what's going on. We let all the vendors know because typically vendors are, the management has let bills go to 90, 120, 150 days out. Well, that does not make for a happy vendor. So typically I will go visit all the major vendors in person and try and convince them that our plan will work.
What are some strategies for selling for those that are?
What?
Well, what are some strategies for selling a company?
Selling's it's a marketing piece. You try and put the company in the best light and tell them, you tell the potential buyers, why this company is such a great company. It was on its butt, 9 months ago, and now look what we've done. The sky's the limit now. And typically you have, at this point in time, it's probably the easiest time to sell a company because you have all the lenders are in a secure position now. They haven't lost their collateral. The vendors within 9 months or so have gotten current with their bills. The employees are not having paychecks bounce anymore. They like that. So when somebody comes in for due diligence, they're going to ask key employees, key managers, certain questions. And I think without exception, the company's going to be on pretty good terra firma at that point.
So what words of encouragement or sort of hype or tease would you like to give people to attend your presentation?
If they want to learn, if they're having any kind of trouble with their company, I think I can probably help them through this, give them a broad brush solution to their issue. And I certainly be more than happy to talk to anybody if they want to call me, since I'm not as busy as I once was. I've kind of geared down, so I'll be happy to help anyone I can.
On the advice of for newcomers, what are some like common mistakes have you seen people like when they're just kind of getting started in the whole turnaround industry that people make? And and how can they be rectified?
I learned it the hard way. I got kicked in the ass several times. And the key thing in the touring industry is that you've got to recognize, and this goes for any company, that cash is king. You may, you know, we've worked on a couple of companies that we increased sales. We grew one company in sales revenue within 15 months from $8 million to over $100 million. And in revenue, but in the meantime, they went bankrupt. They outstripped their cash, even though we warned them. All they wanted was top line revenue. They wanted to be a $100 million a year company. They succeeded, but ran out of money on the way. So whoever it is, whatever company, they may be a phenomenal salesperson. They may be able to generate sales, incredible sales. But if they don't have the profitability to grow it, they've got to figure out a way to get their working capital. And communication, a lot of people in growing a new company, as an example, it's always a lot of fun when you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 employees, and then all of a sudden you turn around and you're at 50 employees. Well, the communication lines have, a tornado has gone down, or has come through there and torn down the communication lines. So the new employees have no idea what the vision of the founder is. They just know they got a job, they're getting a paycheck, and communication ceases at that point. And I would recommend that they reestablish that communication with everybody up and down the line. And that goes for like vendors and lenders also. Communication is key. You'd be surprised at some of the vendors, what they will do to help you out if they like what you're doing. And lenders the same way. They may extend a loan out where they might not have done it otherwise.
Interesting, you brought up communication. I've been talking with some clients who, again, their company is grown and communication has been kind of interesting for them because a small company and they basically like tripled in size pretty quickly. So on the subject of effective communication, do you have any words of wisdom you'd like to share on that topic?
Yeah, don't play games. Communicate honestly. If you've got issues, you don't have to paint the issue. If you have problems, you can share those issues, share those problems with everybody involved. The one thing that I see that causes most of these companies to fail is that they think that sales will float all boats. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But communication up and down and honest communication is key. Let the employees know when you got to make a payroll by maxing out your credit card. Employees realize that that's an issue. Mm-hmm. If their paycheck's 2 days late, employees realize that's an issue. When your banker starts having every Friday you issue, instead of direct deposit into the employee's account, your banker calls you up and says, Trey, we have 17 employees over the last 30 minutes wanting to cash their paycheck. What's going on? Well, tell them honestly what's going on and how you're going to fix it. It's honest communication would be what I'd recommend there.
Thank you for your time. Is there anything else you want to share?
If you're going to be a CEO, you need to understand cash flow. You need to understand employee management. Human capital is your most important asset that you have. And in order to manage them properly, you have to communicate. honestly.
So that's a great wrap up. I appreciate your time, taking the time to chat with me.
Well, you're welcome.